Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 37 of Buddy's Writing Show. I am Buddy Gott, and I'm very happy to have with me tonight author Stephen L. Moss. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank you, buddy. Good to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you here. We first communicated, a few weeks ago, and you had told me about your books. You have a series out, the Paul Kingston mystery series, correct?
That's right.
And yeah, and I picked up the first one called The Sweetest One. I loved it, and I quickly read Autumn Leaves, the second book in the series, and loved that too. So I'm especially excited to have you on the show tonight because I really enjoyed these books. Can
Well,
you?
thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about Mr. Kingston?
Sure. Paul Kingston is he's a fictional freelance musician, bass player, lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and has a tendency to get involved in things beyond just his music. Just people keep dying around him, and he gets involved with figuring out why. So that's the crux of Paul, the musician who solves mysteries.
Right, and it's cool because I had told you before, I love mysteries. Mystery has always been my favorite genre. I love things like Lawrence Block is my favorite writer. I really like Robert B. Parker, Donald Westlake, things like that. I love mysteries, and I am the biggest music junkie ever. I've been addicted to music ever since I was a little kid. I've got thousands of CDs in my collection. Most of them are in the wrong cases, so that makes life really difficult and drives my fiance crazy. And I'm like, honey, grab that one. Oh no, sorry, that's James Taylor is in the AC/DC CD case. It doesn't work out good. But I was excited that Paul was a musician. He's a bass player, like you said. And
Right.
one thing that I loved is that Paul's in a band. One of the he hops around from different bands. You know, he's a working musician. He's in a band called Josie Comes Home, and I
That's
think.
right.
Yeah, and I would think that the very cool viewers of the show would know that that is a line from the song "Josie" by Steely Dan. Are
Correct.
yeah, are they one of your favorite bands?
They are. Yes, I still listen to. I mean, I've been listening to them since they were new, and still do all the time. I just had Asia in my car last week.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That Gaucho, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the first book in the series, like we said, is called The Sweetest One, and you gave like an overview of what Paul keeps running into the because he gets really involved in some interesting situations. But for The Sweetest One, what happens there for Paul? Without giving away too much,
Um,
of course.
right. Well, in the very beginning, Paul gets a phone call from an old friend and bandmate by the name of Billy Reno, who's a guitar player, and is in some kind of trouble. Sounds like he's drunk, and that's not surprising because Billy has kind of descended into drug addiction, has struggled with mental problems. But we don't really meet Billy because Paul wakes up the next morning and finds out that Billy's been brutally murdered,
Right.
and shortly after that, he finds out that Paul, is actually the number one suspect in the murder, because Billy Reno had Paul's business card on his person at the time that he was killed. And not to give away too much, but Paul found himself in a public place complaining about Billy just before his murder. So Paul has to spend the rest of that book trying to prove that he is not Billy Reno's killer.
Yeah, it's really cool, and like I said, it's a great mystery, and there's so many great characters in there. And this is your first book that you've published, right?
That is, yes.
Yeah, I swear, pal, it feels like it's your 10th book. I mean, you've got a great story there. You've got great characters. Paul Kingston's really interesting, and yeah, he really gets like thrown in over his head because he's a musician, but he's got to like get himself out of this jam. And what's neat is your supporting characters are wonderful in there too. I mean, again, not to give away too much, but of course, Paul being a musician, he deals with other musicians that are in his life, and they're in this story too. And yeah, I like now. I'm not going to say too much about what happens to them in the story, but Paul's the guys that have a room at Paul's place. They're really cool. What are their names again?
Justin and Dale.
Right, they have a band called
Yeah,
DIY.
that's
Right.
right. Band called
Yeah.
DIY. They're hackers and makers, so they like to build their own equipment, hack stuff out of old boom boxes and whatnot.
Yeah,
And yeah, Paul has he's sort of a mother hen to younger musicians. He likes to let up and coming players live rent free in his downstairs apartment, and so Justin and Dale are his current free tenants.
yeah, and yeah, I liked them. I mean, I totally had pictures of them. I was picturing, these young guys in the 20s, just like, into the experimental. Well, I'm not going to go again. They create something that I think is kind of cool that they have on stage in their act, and they're great characters. And yeah, it's boy, I don't want. It's tough when you talk about mysteries with mystery authors, on a show like this, because I don't want to give away too much. So why don't we to go over again? That one's a great. I think people should check it out. Now, how about Autumn Leaves? No, wait. Let me go back for a second. Boy, I'm the rambling guy. I've had too much coffee tonight in my monkey's mug. Um, now,
No
when did
Beatles
this?
tonight. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in the dishwasher right now. Damn it.
Ah,
Speaking of that, get more coffee. But now the Sweets one came out just last year, right? The end of 2013 or 2012.
yes, at the end of right, December 2013.
Oh, okay, great,
Yeah.
great. And then more recently, I guess it was in the spring or early summer, you came out with Autumn Leaves, correct?
Yeah. I think that was late June when I got that published. Yeah.
That's cool. And what I like is, because Paul is like this. Musician who's like trying to pick up different gigs. Like in the first book, he worked with like some country performers. Now in this one, it's entirely different because it's centered more around the jazz world. And can you give us a brief rundown on Autumn Leaves?
Certainly. Paul does play all different styles of music, anything that'll pay the rent, and he's periodically invited to play with the band of a great jazz trumpeter named Clive Peterson, who has been internationally famous, but is semi-retired and is based in Milwaukee. Has a great first night of an extended run at Clive's own club there in Milwaukee, but unfortunately, Clive is shot down in the street that very night after their gig, nowhere near Paul. He's not a suspect this time,
Right.
but Paul has known Clive's wife for a long time, and word's kind of gotten around that he had figured out what was going on with the Billy Reno killing and the sweetest one. So Clive's wife says, "Hey, I wish you'd figure this out for me." So he sets out to try and figure out what happened to Clive.
Right. And it's a really good story. I got that I don't know, maybe Tuesday of last week, and I was done in a couple days. It was it was very hard to put down. The first one was too, but this one too. I loved all the way you write your characters is great. You had all these great jazz players in there, and again, like I had said about the young guys in the first book, I could just picture them, and I was like imagining the music that they were playing on the stage because your description is great, and like Paul talks about, just the band being in this groove, and describing like the sax player and the trumpets, and very very good, and it's a really good mystery as well, and like the young guys pop back up from the first one. I know that it seems like they're going to be recurring characters in the series, and very, very
Yes.
good. And also, I don't want to give away again too much, but Paul does sort of have a police connection in these books too. His ex-wife is a police officer, so
That's
that's kind
right.
of neat.
Yes. Yeah, his ex-wife Susan is a police officer, and she does, I believe, if I remember right, in my own book, she's the one that first contacts him in the beginning of the sweetest one. She's the one that lets him know, hey, Billy Reno's been killed. What that everybody's saying you were involved. What's going on? So yeah, he does have a contact who is a police officer, so that and it helps him kind of get a sense of what's going on, like. When he's under investigation for murder, he has a little bit of an inside line on what's being said about him.
Mhm. It's very cool. And the books, like you had mentioned a minute or so ago, they take place in Milwaukee. Now is that where you're from, or I guess you've spent some? It sounds like you really know that area well because you really go into great descriptions in the book.
Yeah, actually, when I started the sweetest one, I did live there. I lived there. Well, my parents are divorced. My father has lived there for most of my life, and I lived there myself. I mostly grew up in Chicago, but I lived in Milwaukee, my family and I, for 5 years,
Oh, okay.
from 2004 to 2010, and it's still my favorite place. It's Milwaukee and Chicago are my two favorite cities in the world. Um, so it was based there when I started the book, and even though I didn't finish the book till I'd moved away, I decided to keep the whole thing there, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. I get to spend time in Milwaukee, which is a place I love and miss very much. So
Right.
that's why I kept it there.
Fantastic, fantastic. A couple people are watching the show live. They chimed in on the comments. David Anson says hello to everyone. LM Stahl says, hi, Stephen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And
Thanks for stopping by.
LM Stahl's a wonderful writer and also my fiance. So thanks
I know. I just followed her on Twitter today.
Thanks for watching, hon. I wanted to ask you now, since these books center so much around music, now what's your musical background? You've got an interesting job, but I know you play music as well.
Yeah, that's right. I've been around music ever since school. I was a band geek to start out with in high school, a music major in college, and with the exception of an ill thought out stint as a paralegal right out of college, I've been in the music industry ever since. I worked in a guitar shop for a while, and then got a job at a harp factory in Chicago called Lion and Healy, where they make the big orchestral pedal harps.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty much where I've been ever since. I mean, I don't work for them anymore. I'm an independent technician now, so I call myself a harp technician. What I do is travel around the country doing maintenance and service on harps.
Wow,
and
that is.
So I'm one of like 10 people that does this. So.
Wow, I was gonna comment how unique it was, but one of 10 people. That's extra unique. That's incredible. So that's awesome that you get to travel around so much. That probably gives you lots of ideas for your stories and maybe some time to write while you're on the road.
Yeah, it's tough to write on the road because I work long hours when I'm traveling, but I do try to at least get something out every day or every other day if I can. But when I'm not on the road, I have a lot of free time. So it's kind of a feast or famine with the writing. I'll do a lot of writing when I'm home, and as much as possible when I'm traveling.
Right. Now, I know you said that you published the book at the end of last year. How far back do you go with your writing? Is writing a kind of a newer thing for you? Have you been writing since you were really young and just recently really dove into it?
I have done it on and off for ever since high school, mostly off. I've been there have been times when I put quite a bit of effort into it, and unfortunately didn't have thick enough skin to deal with the rejection, the inevitable no thanks, we don't want to use this piece. I mean, back before self-publishing, the way you would go, like say for a short story or something, was you'd write your story and you'd send it off to a magazine, and they'd either say they like it or they say no thanks, send it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start racking up these rejections. I mean, I had some stuff that was accepted. I published a couple of stories in Highlights for Children, and
Oh, wow. That's great.
a cool science fiction magazine called Shimmer had a couple pieces in there. So I was reasonably successful, but still just couldn't stand the rejection.
Mm-hmm.
So I would kind of put it away for a while and then come back to it and put it away. And so I was way into it when I started The Sweetest One. That was actually back in 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and worked on it for the better part of a year and then put it away, and it's been this back and forth thing. So finally, in 2012, I just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish this novel. And it's funny to say it, but I didn't even realize that I didn't have a Kindle, and I wasn't really aware of self-publishing. I had this idea I was going to send it off, try to get an agent, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then I heard about self-publishing and Kindle publishing, and I was like, oh, well, I'll do that. So then I just put it out myself.
That's fantastic, and I'm glad you did, because you gave me one of the best books that I've read this year, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, you're definitely my target market. Mark, you're a mystery-loving music fan. I mean, if I can just find another 10,000 like you or so.
Well, a lot of people watch the show. Steve. I'm going to tweet the hell out of it, so we'll be good. Cool. Now, as far as is mystery generally your favorite genre to read also?
I love it, but it's not the only favorite. I'd say I like thriller, suspense, and then Stephen King. like wherever you'd put him, Stephen
Right.
King is probably regardless of genre, my favorite author. I love
He's
reading his stuff.
fantastic.
I've read
Oh,
most
he's
of it
fantastic.
over and over. But I like science fiction. I like fantasy, but enjoy writing mystery.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you mean. Now, there's my first book's not out yet. It's going to be like a little later this year. But I'm the same way. I read all kinds of stuff, and I've tried writing different things, and like I love reading science fiction, but I'm finding like when I try to write it, it's I don't know, it's not there for me. But mysteries, yeah, that's my thing too. It's like my first book's a mystery, so
Mm,
I was especially excited to talk to you since fellow mystery writers and all that. I sound like geeky fan guy here, but I'm sorry. I just read two
right.
of your books in 2 weeks and I love them. So
Oh, oh, you're making my day. I'll try to keep my ego from like blowing the walls out.
so you're gonna have more in this series for me, right? You got something else you're
Oh
working on?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The third Paul Kingston mystery is called Footprints in the Snow,
Ooh, that's a
and
good title.
that's a well-known bluegrass song. So
Oh,
as you
okay.
can imagine, that's going to be sort of the focus. The musical focus of the next book is going to be touring with a bluegrass band.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Nice, nice,
and yeah,
awesome. Well,
and
don't tell
so
me
I
much
can't tell you
more.
too much, but
Yeah.
it is going to be taking place in the winter. So get that footprints in the snow thing fitting in there,
Right.
okay. And so yeah, I'm hoping to have it out by the beginning of winter, say Christmas.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
goal.
Great.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
Now,
then more after that.
okay, fantastic. Now, I'm curious. Do you listen to a lot of writers tell me that they can't listen to music when they write. I mean, it seems like you're a big music lover. Do you ever listen to music when you write?
I haven't done much of that, and I think the reason for me is I think a lot of people might use that to sort of block out the distractions around
Hmm.
them, and I'm sort of have a natural ability to do that. I'm pretty good at getting into a zone where I can't perceive what's going on around me. And I actually write in the middle of my house with my family walking around. And my wife does like to ask me questions from time to time. So if I had that added barrier of music plus my hyper focus, she'd probably
Right.
kill me. So
Oh, yeah, we don't
I
want
don't listen
that.
to music. Yeah, I'm already like in my own bubble. So
Right.
I don't add to it with the music. But so it's not that I wouldn't like it, but I think I just don't need it really.
Yeah.
I listen to it in my while I'm washing the dishes or whatever.
Right. Right. And I'm curious too. Just because writers all write in such different ways. Now, do you when you start your stories, do you outline them first, or you just kind of dive in and see where it goes? I know everyone does it differently, and I don't know. A lot of mystery writers say that they because they know there's the murder and they've got to like set up all these obstacles that they do some outlining before. How do you work?
Yeah, that's I believe going to be my approach. I mean, each book has been different. The first one I wrote really started out as a seat of the pants kind of a thing where I just
Hmm.
began writing one day, and I think at some point I figured out who the killer was and so forth. But that book took me about 7 years to finish.
Hmm.
So the second one, which I wanted to finish in less than 7 years, I did fairly extensively outline that. I read a book called How to Write a Damn Good Mystery by James Frey, I think it is,
Oh,
Frey,
I've heard of that one.
and sort of followed his approach. Yeah, it's a fantastic book and really gives you a good way to set up your mystery. And so I kind of followed his approach for the second one and the third one, but I'm finding the third one is straying from the outline, and I knew I didn't quite have it all down when I wrote that outline, but I figured it's time to start the book, and so now I'm doing a lot of revising. But yeah, to answer your question a little more briefly, yeah, I am doing I do outline ahead of time. I think with an amateur sleuth, you don't have the police. I kind of have to come up with a crime that'll work for my non-police, non-private eye sleuth.
Mhm.
So it definitely takes some planning.
Right. And I like the fact that he is an amateur too. I think I had left reviews for both books on Amazon.com. one of the things I really liked about it, because yeah, like I said, mystery is my favorite genre. But in almost all the mysteries, you have either a police officer, or, some sort of detective or a private eye. So it's kind of cool seeing this, just amateur guy who does get kind of thrown in over his head, and has to deal with solving these mysteries and crimes. I mean, murders and crimes. Excuse me. So it's a lot of fun to read.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that there's a whole lot of mysteries that feature non-law enforcement professionals.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people call them cozy mysteries. A lot of them are.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, my wife loves these. So there's one that's a caterer and boarding house owner and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so I wanted to have something like that. But of course, music being one of my big loves, I wanted to bring that in as well. So that's kind of where it came from. But I think it's challenging to write a mystery when you don't have a setup like a private investigator or a police officer or a detective. So,
Hmm.
it's kind of an added challenge to do that,
Yeah,
but fun.
right, and for me, I know it's kind of it's fun to read or watch that kind of movie or TV show too, where it's not it is someone who doesn't have like all the like types, CSI or NCIS, things at their disposal to help solve these murders. It makes it more of an old style mystery, I think. So that's really neat, because Paul really does have to do some serious investigating and an awful lot of thought, to figure these things out. So I think he's a great character. And these are, like a lot of written in the first person, which I love. That's my favorite thing to read. And yeah, I think Paul Kingston's a great character. I really wish you luck with this series, and I'm very anxious to read the next dozen or so, however many you do.
Well, thank you so much.
No
I'm
pressure
excited
there,
to write
Mr.
them.
Moss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Have
Yeah,
three out
I
for
haven't.
Christmas for me. I'll be happy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If I could get them faster, I will. This one's kind of kicking my butt. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining. I love it, but I'm like, why isn't this coming together more easily? So it'll
But
be
yeah,
it'll be out by Christmas. I.
yeah, that's the fun thing with writing, though. I know some of the things that have been like the hardest and biggest pain in the ass for me. Once it clicks, it's such a high. It's like, oh yeah, I got it now, and then you can wrap it up
Oh,
with a lot of
totally,
satisfaction.
totally.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I had a little moment like that recently. I was in my hotel room, and I just came up with this idea to solve a problem I was having, and I was just like dancing around the room, like yeah. So those moments are wonderful when they happen.
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. Now, where can people find you online? Are you pretty active online?
I'm around. They
Mm-hmm.
can find me at my website, which is stephenlmoss.com. And if you're interested in checking out my first book, the sweetest one, I've been blogging a chapter of that every other day, and I think we're up to about chapter 26 out of 33 chapters. So most of the book is right there on the blog. And you can also find me on Twitter at Stephen L. Moss or Facebook.com/Stephen L. Moss. So, I try to make an appearance at all those places and love to interact with people. So,
Right. And
so
I've checked
stop
out all
by.
those. Yeah, definitely stop by. I've checked out all those places. They're great sites, and I enjoy your Twitter page too. But yeah, people, go check out the sweetest one right there on StephenLMoss.com, or go buy it. It's available from fine online retailers.
That's right. Yeah. all the usual suspects.
All the usual suspects. There you go. We had to
Right.
work that into the mystery show here. Well, Steve, I really thank you so much for being on the show. And again, I really appreciate your books. I really enjoyed them a lot. So thank you
Well,
very
thank you,
much.
buddy. So glad to hear that, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasure talking with you. Everyone who's watched, thank you so much. Hey, here's an idea for you. If you don't mind looking at me again, I have a new show called Buddy's Review Show, and tomorrow, September 17th, I'm going to have a new episode up where I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about Stephen L. Moss's books, and also I'll be reviewing the new album from the Counting Crows. You can check that out. I'll have a link down here. I can't remember what side it goes on, but I'll have that there. So check it out. And thank you again, Steve, and everybody have a great day. See ya.